Hi class, this is a video to introduce some of the main terms that we're going to be using this semester in terms of argument and structure. You'll be seeing these things all through the course. You'll get so sick of hearing me talk about it, but this is just our introduction to it. So this is we start with our argument chart, and you can see at the top we have our claim. That's the big thing that you are arguing. We talk about it in terms of thesis statement. It's what you are claiming, the stand you are taking. Beneath those, you're going to have your subclaims, and you'll see what those are in a second, and then support that helps prove the subclaim, and then reasoning and explanation, why we should believe those subclaims. So with our claims, you'll have claims of definition, claims of cause and effect, claims of evaluation, claims of proposal or policy, and claims of ethics and values. And these are all types of claims that we will be discussing through the semester. A subclaim, that is a reason we should believe the claim. So it's all of the things that you can think of, the main categories that you can think of for why the reader should believe what you are claiming to be true. With our support, if we're going to have our reasons to believe, we've got to give evidence for why we would believe that subclaim. So this is where we give our authorities, where we have our quotes from our experts. It's where we get testimony, facts, statistics, examples, allusions, scenarios that might illustrate what we are talking about. But all of those things that we do to help the reader understand the subclaim is true and why that subclaim helps support the claim. Our reasoning and explanation, we might make appeals to logos, ethos, pathos, needs, and values. We will talk about what those things mean, but the big thing I want you to understand is always you're going to be explaining your reasoning, explaining your evidence. I will be asking you all the time, so what? That's my way of saying, why does this matter? Here's an illustration. Say this is my claim. Even though I got a 79% overall, I should get a B in English 1B. English 1B. So even though a B is 80%, my 79% should be good enough. If I've got that claim, I've got to have subclaims. So here are my reasons why my claim should be true. First, my paper grade steadily improved. Second, I worked really hard in this course. And third, I will lose my student loan if I don't get a B. So if I've got that first subclaim, I've got to give support for it, right? So I first can show my grades were 68, 73, 79, and 86. So if that's all you did, the reader would wonder, okay, so what? That's true, but so what? Why does that matter? Well, here's my explaining. While my initial papers were less than or barely acceptable, by semester's end I had grown as a writer and thinker. I thus achieved the goals of the course as detailed in your syllabus and have become a student who produces better than, quote-unquote, acceptable work. So I go through and I give my reasoning. I explain my reasoning, why that evidence helps support that this is worthy. My aunt, a professor of English at Harvard, read my papers. While she agreed with your grades, she added I had progressed remarkably from a student who couldn't get through the Harvard gates to one she could imagine in her own classes. So here I give another piece of evidence and I explain why that matters. And in this case, I'm also appealing to ethos. This is an appeal to authority. This is a teacher at Harvard. I'm also buttering up the professor, of course, by saying this Harvard professor agrees with you. My second subclaim, I worked really hard in this course. Well, how am I going to prove that? So I'm going to come up with ways to prove it. I came to your office at least once for each of the last 3 papers. So that's one piece of support. I would have to then explain my reasoning. Why does that matter? Why does that prove the idea of hard work? How does that go back to the claim of the B? Another piece of evidence, I could wallpaper my room with the sheets given for visiting the writing center. So in each of these cases, I spent all of this time outside of class that was unrequired to help improve myself as a writer. Lastly, many weekends while my friends were out, I was at the library improving my papers and writing/analytical skills. So these are all pieces of support, and like I said before, with each of these you would want to explain why they mattered. You never want to assume that the reader will see the evidence the same way you do. All right, lastly, I will lose my student loan if I don't get a B. I gotta give support for that. I need a 3.0 to keep my student loan, and a C plus will drop me to a 2.8. So there's just a strict fact, and I could then talk about why that matters. I am the first in my family to attend college, and it will crush my parents. That's a bad thing, right? And I'm appealing there to pathos, which is an appeal to the emotion of the reader. In this case, it's an emotion of empathy or pity, feeling sorry. Lastly, I have learned the value of hard work and education over the course of this semester and understand now the opportunity I have been given. That's an appeal to values that we share. You, Mr. Professor, and I, the student, share this value of hard work and share this value of education, and now we understand it together. So you can see there, in all those cases, we have our claim, we have our subclaims, our reasons to believe the claim, and then we always provide support for why we should believe those subclaims, and very importantly, and that's not always done, it's mostly in the first example, we always explain how that support, how that evidence helps prove what we are arguing.